Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're diving into Baca, Jerusalem, a city that feels like it's straight out of a history book and a spiritual text at the same time. We're talking blueprints, legends, prophecies, all pointing to a place unlike any other rice.
It's amazing, isn't it, how all these sources agree that Baca, Jerusalem is like a physical embodiment of spiritual ideals. Not just a city, but a blueprint for a utopia, kind of like, the legend of Atlantis.
Whoa, Atlantis. That comparison makes you wonder, what about Baca, Jerusalem made people think of that kind of mythical, perfect civilization?
Well, the sources often mention architecture as one key thing, specifically the Dome of the Rock. It's described as, an incredible example of how they built things back then. But it's also supposed to have a much deeper meaning. It's on the Temple Mount, a place that many different faiths see as holy. And they say it's built right on top of the Holy of Holies.
The Holy of Holies. Some listeners might need a little refresher. What makes that spot so special again?
Think of it as, like, the one place on Earth where the line between the physical and the spiritual is super thin, almost gone. Like the place where many believe God's presence was the strongest, and the Dome of the Rock being right there on top of it, that just makes it even more important.
Like it's saying, this is where heaven and earth meet. But let's talk about how they actually built it.
Yeah.
Sources talk about these huge stones they used, some weighing like 100 tons. I mean, that's hard to imagine, even with all the tech we've got today. How'd they do that back then?
And that's where these angelic builders come in. These texts weave in this idea that Baca, Jerusalem, especially the Dome of the Rock, it wasn't just a normal human project, They say these celestial beings, these angels, they were directly involved in building it. Like they put divine energy and wisdom into the stones themselves.
So these celestial beings, they weren't just the architects. They were rolling up their sleeves, their wings, I guess, and helping with the actual construction. That's not your average construction crew. Makes you wonder, if they could move stones that big, what else could they do? Things we might think are impossible.
Right. It really gets your imagination going. We don't know exactly how they were involved, of course. I mean, it's all shrouded in myth and legend. But the idea that keeps popping up is that this project was so massive, it needed knowledge and skill beyond what humans had back then. As if the angelic builders were like channels, bringing a higher power into Baca, Jerusalem's actual physical structure.
Fascinating. So was the goal just to show off, like, hey, look what we can do with divine power?
Yeah.
Or was there something more, like inspiring humans to reach beyond what they thought was possible? And speaking of inspiration, these sources don't just talk about the celestial stuff. They also tell very human stories about the prophets who are connected to Baca, Jerusalem.
Absolutely. Baca, Jerusalem isn't just some static background. It's woven into these prophets' experiences. We've got Adam, Noah, Jesus, Muhammad, all connected to this one city, each one adding their part to its story.
Like a who's who of spiritual heavyweights, all leaving their mark on this one place. Makes you think, what was it about this city that drew them in? What was it about Baca, Jerusalem that spoke to people searching for something bigger than themselves?
Maybe it was the way the city brought together the physical and the spiritual, which, is perfectly shown in the story of Muhammad's night journey. See, other prophets, they're connected to Jerusalem through what they taught or what they did there. But Muhammad's connection, it comes from a specific, amazing event.
The night journey. Sounds pretty intense. For anyone who hasn't heard of it, what's the quick version?
So, in Islamic tradition, the night journey is super important. It's when they say Muhammad traveled from Mecca to Jerusalem, and then right from a rock in the city, he ascends to heaven.
Wait, so he didn't just visit Jerusalem, it was like his launch pad to heaven? That kind of changes things, huh?
Totally. It really underlines how Baca, Jerusalem is the central point, where the earth and the heavens connect. And that spot where it happened, it's supposed to be right there inside the Dome of the Rock now, makes it even more significant, right?
It's like Baca, Jerusalem becomes this character in all these stories. We see it through the angelic builders. We see how important it was to the prophets. But there's that other side of it, that utopia idea. What did that actually look like, according to these sources?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's easy to get caught up in the big stories and the impressive buildings, but these sources really make you think about what Baca, Jerusalem stands for on a deeper level. Like, what ideals were they trying to show with the city, even if it was just symbolic?
It's more than just pretty buildings and angels, right? Yeah. What were the fundamental pieces of this utopia, so to speak?
Well, looking at these texts, there are a few core principles that keep coming up. First, they really emphasize unity. Baca, Jerusalem isn't shown as a monument to just one faith. It's more like a place where those spiritual lines are supposed to disappear,
Right. You've got Adam, Jesus, Muhammad, all these figures from totally different traditions.
Yeah.
And they're all part of the Baca Jerusalem story.
Exactly. It suggests that Baca Jerusalem, at its heart, wanted to go beyond those differences in doctrine, to be a place where people could focus on that shared human desire for a spiritual connection and just let it grow.
It's like they're saying, come as you are, forget the labels and divisions, and let's search for something bigger together. That's really powerful, especially today when the world feels so divided by religion and culture.
And it's not just about breaking down religious boundaries either. Remember that Atlantis comparison? It seems like they're saying Baca Jerusalem, like Atlantis, wanted to encourage everyone to search for knowledge and wisdom together.
So no more keeping knowledge to yourself. It's about working together, actually wanting to understand things together, not just existing next to each other.
That's it. Baca Jerusalem, the ideal version of it, is a society that celebrates curiosity, where knowledge is shared freely and used to make things better for everyone.
Like a giant library of wisdom that anyone can access. Pretty different from today, where people often compete over knowledge or treat it like something only a select few can have.
You got it. These sources seem to be pointing to a different way of doing things, one where collaboration and openly sharing ideas are valued more than individual achievement or hoarding knowledge, you know?
So, unity, shared wisdom.
Yeah.
What else is part of this utopian foundation? It feels like there's more, something even bigger than all of that.
You're right. There's another key part that often gets lost in our modern world. It's that feeling of awe, of being connected to something bigger than ourselves.
Like the city itself has this energy, something that makes you feel wonder and a sense of reverence. Is that what these sources are saying?
That's it. Remember the angelic builders. It's not just that they physically built the city, it's that they acted as conduits for divine energy. These sources say they infused Baca Jerusalem with this spiritual meaning that goes way beyond the physical stuff.
So those 100-ton stones, they're more than just a display of incredible engineering. They're like a physical reminder of a power we can barely even understand.
And that feeling of awe, that connection to something bigger, it's not just a nice feeling, it's essential to the whole utopian vision of Baca Jerusalem, according to these sources.
Because it reminds us that there's more to life than just going through the motions, that we're part of something amazing and huge.
Exactly. And maybe that's what drew all those prophets to Baca Jerusalem. And what still draws pilgrims there today, it's that desire to tap into that energy, to feel that connection for themselves.
Like it's hardwired into us, even if we can't always put it into words. This need to step outside our normal lives and experience something truly extraordinary.
And that's what makes the story of Baca Jerusalem so captivating, you know. It taps into that deep human longing for connection to something divine, to each other, to something that goes beyond the limits of what we experience every day.
Hearing all of this, it's kind of hard not to feel a little, inadequate. I mean, here we are stuck in traffic, stressing over deadlines, and these stories are talking about angels moving mountains and prophets going to heaven. Kind of a lot to live up to.
I get what you mean. It's easy to romanticize the past, to look at Baca Jerusalem through these idealized lenses. But maybe that's where we need to shift our thinking a bit.
Oh, how do we do that? Should I start carrying a 100-ton rock around for inspiration?
Maybe not 100 tons, but you've got a point. Maybe instead of trying to recreate Baca Jerusalem exactly as it was, we should see it as inspiration, like a reminder that we all have that potential for unity, for wisdom, for awe inside us already.
So not about building an exact copy, but taking those ideas like inclusivity, sharing knowledge, having a sense of wonder, and finding ways to live them out in our own lives.
Exactly. It's about asking ourselves, how can we make those values real in our own little corners of the world? How can we build bridges instead of walls, you know? How can we find that feeling of wonder in a world that often feels so normal and boring?
It's like these sources are saying, look, we know you can't just call up a team of angels to help you out. But that doesn't mean you can't do something amazing.
Exactly. It's about focusing on what we can actually do, the choices we make every day, choosing to be more open and welcoming in our relationships, in our communities, trying to learn new things, not just for ourselves, but because it might help other people too. Yeah. Taking a minute to really see the beauty in the everyday stuff, whether it's how perfectly a leaf is formed or just someone being kind for no reason.
Those are things anyone can do, right?
Yeah.
It's more realistic than trying to build some grand mythical city, right? Like, I can get behind that.
And yet all those small things, those little acts of unity, wisdom, awe, if we do them consistently, they can have a ripple effect. They can make other people want to do the same thing, to look for ways to build their own version of Baca Jerusalem, even if it's just metaphorical.
It's like that butterfly effect thing. But instead of causing chaos, It's all these positive actions spreading out from this one powerful idea.
And honestly, that might be the biggest thing we can take away from our deep dive into Baca, Jerusalem today. It's realizing that the potential for incredible things, for unity, for connecting with something bigger than us, it's not just in old stories or myths. It's in each of us, waiting for us to pay attention to it, to let it grow.
Yeah, it's a good reminder. We may never get to actually walk the streets of Baca, Jerusalem, but we can still carry that feeling with us. We can choose to build things, to connect with each other, to feel that sense of wonder. And when we do that, it affects so much more than just us.
Exactly. Who knows, maybe those ripples will spread out and create something truly amazing, something that impress even those angelic builders.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this. What will you do to cultivate your own inner Baca, Jerusalem? What small act of unity, wisdom, or awe will you bring into the world today? Until next time, keep searching, keep wondering, and keep building those bridges between heaven and earth.